There's a moment in the film where Rod tells Stella he's written a song for her.
It's a serenade to Stella by Starlight.
A song recorded by just about every one of the great jazz musicians and vocalists of the last 70 years. And the song is a haunting refrain about a beautiful girl who calls to mind the gentle and sublime beauties of the natural world. The girl, Stella, was played by Gail Russell. And every discussion of The Uninvited includes a footnote on breakout star Gail Russell's life and career. Because running concurrently with the tragic events that took place in the fictional world of Windward House is the very real story of a young girl plucked from obscurity and pushed by her mother into film acting, a profession that she was entirely mentally and emotionally unsuited for. Gail recalled that as a child, I was possessed with an agonizing kind of self-consciousness, where I felt my insides tightening into a knot, where my face and hands grew clammy, where I couldn't open my mouth, where I felt impelled to turn and run if I had to meet new people. When my parents had guests, I would run, get under the piano, and hide there. So not at all the personality type that would seek out the spotlight and scrutiny of a film career. And she didn't seek it out. It was really an unlucky accident of fate that led Gail Russell to Paramount Studios. The story of Gail Russell's discovery rivals the mythical story of Lana Turner at the Schwab's counter, and it goes like this. Paramount Supervisor of Talent and Casting William Mickelton picked up hitchhiking high school boys cutting class from University High School. During the ride, he mentioned he worked for Paramount Pictures, at which point the boys began to rave about a classmate who should be in pictures, comparing her beauty to that of Hedy Lamarr. Mickelton, intrigued, followed up and tracked the girl down at a technical school where she was studying art. That girl was Gail Russell. Before being discovered, Russell had ambitions to be a commercial artist. She was talented and she loved drawing and painting. But the title of a 1947 article sums up her tragedy. Gail said, "When I was discovered for the movies, I was sleeping on the living room floor on newspapers. I went for my first interview with paint all over my face. I've been helping paint a room at the technical school. Paramount offered me a minimum salary, $50 a week, and Mom said, 'Take it, we need the money.'" But underneath the immediate need for financial stability was something else. Both Gail's mother and father harbored ambitions for stardom, and as a young woman, Mrs. Russell had gotten cold feet when offered a test by a movie studio. She always felt she missed a chance, and once Gail was on Paramount's radar, she was not going to let her daughter make the same mistake. So, at the age of 19, with no acting experience and suffering from debilitating shyness, Gail Russell made her film debut in the 1943 picture Henry Aldridge Gets Glamour. That was followed by a small part in Lady in the Dark with Ginger Rogers. Lady in the Dark director Mitchell Leeson said of Gail, "The poor girl was gorgeous, but she had hysterics every time the camera started to turn." In 1944, Gail would be cast in The Uninvited.
And introducing the exciting beauty of Gail Russell, whose first love is shadowed by the specters of the past.
The part of Stella required timidity, coiled nervousness, and the ability to convey real fear. And for Gail, this wasn't acting. She was terrified and paralyzed by stage fright, and in a cascading list of misfortunes. This role exploited her weakness, and what looked like acting was actually her emotional truth in those moments. And it was unlucky for her that the film was a massive hit. Director Lewis Allen recalled of her, "I wasn't very enthusiastic about taking Gail Russell because she'd only done one small part in a picture before this. And when she read for me, it was pretty bad. Between takes, Ray Milland would take her aside and rehearse her, and rehearse her, and rehearse her. He was excellent with her. No one is sure who advised her to use alcohol to quell her anxiety, but it would be the absolute worst advice she could ever receive. And she received it sometime during the filming of The Uninvited. And it wouldn't be long until she was a full-blown alcoholic." Perhaps if the film hadn't been such a success, she could have faded away from Hollywood and into the obscurity of a commercial art career and lived the rest of her life out of the spotlight. But within a year, Russell was reportedly drinking during scene breaks and keeping a bottle of vodka in her dressing room. Although Paramount executives allegedly knew about her growing problem, instead of intervening and getting her help, They merely closed her sets and kept her away from the press. By the late 1940s, Paramount started loaning her out to other studios, and the quality of her film assignments slipped. The word around town was Russell was hard to handle. By the 1950s, Gail was on a downward spiral. And in 1953, John Wayne's wife, Chada, named her in her divorce suit against Wayne and accused the two of having an affair during the making of 1947's Angel and the Badman. The subsequent media circus and publicity led Gail to a nervous breakdown. Wayne was sensitive to Gail's insecurities. Years later, after her death, he said, "Gail was a beautiful young girl, and some of those fucking sons of bitches at the studios had taken advantage of her. You know about the old casting couch? She'd been there a number of times. Well, it didn't happen with me. I gave her parts on her own merits. She was one person I never shouted at because I knew she was insecure. She had an anxiety problem, which I understood because I'd had that when I was just a kid. I felt all she needed was someone to show her kindness." Wayne stepped in 1956 and offered her a role in the film he was producing. And after being off screen for 7 years, Russell returned to work in a co-starring role with Randolph Scott in the Wayne-produced Western 7 Men From Now. She tried AA and was sent to an inpatient clinic, but she would always find her way back to the bottle. For the last 8 months of her life, she secluded herself in her apartment, drinking, painting, and sketching. On August 26, 1961, Gail Russell was found dead in her apartment in Brentwood. She was 36 years old. The dream of fame in Hollywood was not hers. It fell upon her by a terrible twist of fate and allowed her to become the victim of others' ambitions. The Uninvited is a pretend story put on screen for thrills and chills, but the images in light and shadow captured on celluloid film create another kind of ghost. Images of people as they once were and never will be again. It traps them like insects in amber, and time and life marches on around them, sometimes leaving us years later to ponder the sad what-ifs. There are 8 million stories in the cinema cities, and this has been one.